Good morning, my friends. This is Alec, and today I realized I have exactly 50 games in my Steam library that I've accumulated over the past 15 years. So, since 2007, y'all. What I'm going to do to honor the milestone is go through each game on this list and do a 15-second or less review for each. So, let's jump right into it with Beam NG Drive. So, this is a car game with soft body physics where you can create these insane cinematic crashes, and you can also drive uh, like any other racing game if you want. Recommend it if you're creative. Black Mesa. Black Mesa is a complete remake of the original Half Life using the Source engine, which is what Half Life 2 came out on. I highly recommend it just as much as Half Life 2 itself. And if you want to play the Half Life series, this is the best place to start. Braid. So, Braid is a 2D platformer kind of puzzle game. I honestly haven't played it in like a decade, so I don't really remember much about it, and I probably didn't put more than 10 minutes into it. So there you go. Counter Strike Global Offensive. This is a shooter where you play online, terrorist versus counter terrorist. And if you've played any of the Counter Strike games, it's pretty much the same thing, but it's free, and you can pay $100 for a knife skin if you want. You die in one hit. Darksiders War Mastered Edition. This is a hack and slash game from around 2010, I believe. I played it for the first time last year, and honestly, there are better games in the genre at this point. This one feels a little bit dated, but it's still not a bad game. Deus Ex Game of the Year Edition. Deus Ex is a game where you get sent out on missions as a cop, and you have a lot of choice and you have RPG elements, even though it is a shooter, and the choices you make completely change the story. I highly recommend it. It's a great game. Deus Ex Human Revolution. This is the sequel to Deus Ex, and I haven't played a whole lot of it, but it's a little more generic than the original, doesn't quite have that it factor, but the soundtrack is fantastic. Like, just put on the soundtrack someday and clean your apartment, you'll be happy. Doom 2016. This is one of my favorite games of all time. It's an arena shooter where you just wreak havoc on demons using all kinds of weapons, and the soundtrack actually adapts to your playstyle. It feels like a rhythm game just as much as a shooter. Play it. Skyrim Special Edition. So I really held off on playing this for as long as possible, but this year I played it for the first time. Super addicting. I played it for like 25 hours. And yeah, it's as incredible as everyone says, but you might become a no lifer. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. This is a complete mod for Far Cry 3, and it's basically a love letter to everything 80s and synth and Terminator and Predator. And if you want a light-hearted, funny 80s themed shooter, this is what you play. Flat Out Ultimate Carnage. This is the best Flat Out game that Bugbear, the original developers, made. This is what you want to play if you haven't played 1 or 2. It's basically 2.5. It's got better graphics, better everything, and it is my favorite arcade racer of all time. Forza Horizon 5. I have a love-hate relationship with this game. I think it's kind of right in the middle of arcade and sim and not quite the best at either of those things. I'm either really bored or exhilarated by it, and the online frustrates me and it takes up too much space on the hard drive. Gary's Mod. So this is a sandbox thing for the Source engine. You can play online deathmatch. You can make machinima comedy. It's basically just like, here's all the assets to the Source engine. Do whatever you want with it. Gone Home. This was a gift from a coworker, so I didn't buy it. But you go into your house, no one's there. You rummage through your old things and reveal memories about yourself, which of course the player doesn't know. I found it a little boring, but you might like it. Grand Theft Auto 5. This was my first Grand Theft Auto game, and I played it for the first time last year or the year before. And yeah, the story is really fun. I didn't find that there was much to do after you're done with the story, though, and I wasn't really interested in the online, so yeah. Grim Fandango Remastered. I barely played this one, maybe an hour or less. It's a point and click game that's 3D, and it's kind of this quirky Dia de los Muertos game where you're a detective, and yeah, it's pretty quirky. Half Life 2 Update. As far as I know, this is still the best way to play Half Life 2. It's just got very subtle upgrades to lighting, shadows, skyboxes. Any ugly graphical stuff that was in the original is kind of smoothed over. And yeah, one of my favorite games of all time. Halo, the Master Chief Collection. So the only Halo game I own is 2. I've only played 1 and 2. 2 blew my mind. I played it for the first time last year. I was amazed by the scale of the levels, even in this year. And yeah, Halo 2, sweet. Ion Fury. So this was a gift from my buddy Fitterspace, and it's basically a Duke Nukem kind of soul successor. And yeah, that pretty much tells you everything about it. You shoot and make funny one-liners. Jet Set Radio. This originally came out on the Dreamcast, and it's like Tony Hawk, but it's got the cell shaded art style, really cool music, and you spray paint things and escape from the law, and they're shooting at you, and yeah, it's really stylish. Journey. One of my favorite games of all time. It's kind of a walking simulator, but honestly, one of the most beautiful gaming experiences I've ever had. I've replayed it probably a dozen times. It's really short, like 2 hours. One of my highly recommended games. Just Cause 2. I got this because it was on sale for like a buck or something. I've played it for an hour. It's fantastic. It's an open world third person shooter with like grappling mechanics, and it's just all about having as much fun as possible. Better than GTA, probably. Lone Survivor. I've never played it. I have no idea what it's about. Post in the comments below if you know anything about Lone Survivor. Mass Effect. One of my ex girlfriends thought I'd really like this game, so I eventually picked it up. And I don't know, it's too RPG for me. And I just kind of got bored with it. Just not enough action, man. I need more pew pew. Metal Slug. Metal Slug is one of the most beautiful 2D pixel games ever made. I think the first one is probably the standout as far as being accessible to everyone. It's a fun game to master. It's a side scrolling shooter. Metal Slug 3. This is the biggest and most ambitious Metal Slug game. You can take varying paths to see different levels every time you play it. It's probably objectively the best Metal Slug game. If you want to try one, do this one, I guess. But I like the first one a lot too. Metal Slug X. So this is just a better version of Metal Slug 2, which had some issues. By the way, these games are co-op side-scrolling shooters, and yeah, they're super fun. This one just has less lag and more fun to it than the original Metal Slug 2. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. I was really excited to see a competitor coming in to challenge Nintendo's Smash Brothers series, but this just doesn't quite do it. There's not enough animations to the attack, so it's really hard to tell what's going on, and the production quality is pretty low. No Man's Sky. I played this when it first came out and actually loved it. Played it for 60 hours, but after the veil dropped and I realized how shallow it just wasn't that great anymore. Even with all the updates, there's just not a whole lot to do or a reason to do it. Papers, Please. This is a memory game with a 2D art style set in like Nazi Germany, and I do not have a good enough memory to play this game. It's really frustrating, and every time you mess up, you have to start over. Quake. This is the remastered version of Quake. This is one of the must have games on Steam, in my opinion. If you buy nothing else, buy this. It's such a great value at like $10. It includes everything that's ever come out for the original Quake virtually, and it's just perfect. Quake Champions. This is a free to play multiplayer deathmatch version of Quake, the latest Quake game. And honestly, I like it a lot. It does have some issues, and the player base is shrinking, unfortunately, but I really enjoy this game, and you don't have to pay a cent for it. Quake 3 Arena. So I have a lot of nostalgia for this game. I played it way back in like 7th, 8th grade during after school. It's an arena shooter and one of the kings of the genre, although there's not a whole lot of reason to play this when you have the next game we're going to talk about. Quake Live. So this basically is Quake 3 Arena with just more features. You can also find a server where Agent Under Fire maps are being hosted 24/7. So if you want to play Quake 3 Arena, just get this instead. There's more players online. Resident Evil 4. This is one of the best survival action games ever made, and there's a HD mod for it that takes up like 75 gigs on your hard drive, but it's well worth it. brings the game up to date. They're remaking it, but this will always be a classic. Shadow Man Remastered. So this is one of the most ambitious games from the N64 era. This is completely remastered. You're basically traveling through the depths of hell layer by layer, and it's just a fantastic experience from top to bottom. I can't recommend it enough. Sonic Mania. This is truly a part of the classic Sonic game collection. If you like Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic CD, this is like the next game to play. It's fantastic, a great value, classic Sonic the Hedgehog, and I love it. Space Channel 5 Part 2. One of my favorite games of all time. It's a rhythm game, kind of like Simon Says. It's got an incredible art style. It's quirky, it's beautiful, timeless graphics, and yeah, it totally surprised me that I liked it too. Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy. This is a GameCube era puzzle platforming action game, a lot like Legend of Zelda. Some of the puzzles in this game actually trump anything that's been in any Zelda games of the same era. Give it a try. Squad. A multiplayer shooting game, large open maps, realistic squad combat. There's a mod for it called Galactic Contention, which is Star Wars theme. It's reason enough to get this, trust me. Star Wars Battlefront 2. I love 1 and 2. I grew up with both of them. An interesting story, I actually ended up working with the guy that posed in the Stormtrooper outfit on the front cover of Battlefront 1. Yeah, basically it's Battlefield with Star Wars. Star Wars Empire at War. This is a real time strategy game in the Star Wars universe. It's highly regarded, although I haven't played much of it. I feel like I am probably the worst RTS player in the world. Every time I play or try to learn, I just get absolutely my butt handed to me. I really suck. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I love the N64 game, super nostalgic for it. I think it fits the console well. On PC, it's too cleaned up, it's too fast, it loses that vibe. The cutscenes are ugly CGI instead of cool comic book pixel art. Eh. Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Next to Jedi Outcast, this is the best play as a Jedi Star Wars game ever made. It's got crazy physics and overpowered force powers, ragdoll stormtroopers, beautiful environments, but it's kind of buggy. Super Meat Boy. I've never played it. Yeah, that's going to surprise a lot of people. I have never played Super Meat Boy, not for a moment. Look at the time 0 minutes. Maybe I'll play it someday. I like games like this. Never played it. Titanfall 2. One of the best FPS single player experiences I've ever had. It's like Mirror's Edge, Call of Duty, and Half Life all wrapped into one. The story is fun, the movement is insane, and it's a must play. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. So I heard a lot about this. I think it's the third Splinter Cell game. I've only played a very short amount of it, but people still rave about this game in the stealth genre as being something that still has not been topped in a lot of ways with its mechanics. Tomb Raider. This is the Tomb Raider remake. I've heard incredible things about it. It's got overwhelming positive reviews, and I've never played it, but I will at some point soon. Trackmania Nations Forever. This is a free online racing game with no collision where you race against each other to see who can get the fastest lap time, and you have unlimited attempts. I think it's a fantastic game that still looks good today, even though it's quite old. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This is kind of an action RPG open world. I like it. It's hard for me to stay hooked on it, but there's a new free next gen update coming for it, so maybe that will get me back into it. I think I've played like 5 hours or something. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked it, maybe drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, I'll be back with more content. High on Life is coming out in 3 days, so I'll be covering that. I hope you're excited to see that. I'm ready to laugh my ass off. And yeah, have a good day. Have a good weekend.